Ducati just did something factories almost never do. They named the rider they are about to lose, and instead of a warm goodbye, they called him a problem. Pecco Bagnaia leaves for Aprilia in 2027, and the people who built both of his titles are already talking about him like a threat they have to plan around. That is not how you describe a champion stepping down. That is how you describe someone you expect to see in your mirrors. So why is the most dominant team on the grid bracing against a rider it chose to let walk? And what do they already know about that Aprilia that the rest of us keep underrating? Think about how rare this is. When a star leaves a top team, the factory buries it in PR warmth. They thank him, wish him well, pose for the farewell photo, and quietly imply the timing was right for everyone. That is the standard script. Ducati tore it up. The man who runs their factory garage admitted, on the record, that the rider walking out the door is going to hurt them. Factories do not do that unless the fear is real and the math is already against them. And once you understand what Bagnaia is walking toward, that admission stops sounding like respect. It starts sounding like a warning they are giving themselves. Here is what actually happened. Aprilia announced the signing just before the Dutch Grand Prix at Assen, the old cathedral of this sport. Bagnaia on a 4-year contract from 2027, replacing Jorge Martin, who is heading the other way to Yamaha. On paper, it looks like a straight swap. It is nothing of the sort. Because of who Bagnaia is to Ducati specifically, he is not just a former champion passing through. He joined their world in 2019, moved into the factory team in 2021, and won back-to-back titles in 2022 and 2023. 31 race wins in red, 63 podiums. The most winning rider in the entire history of Ducati. That is the number that matters. Not most winning of his era. Most winning, full stop, for a brand that has raced here for decades. And a rider like that does not leave with only his helmet. He leaves with 8 years of knowing exactly how that Desmosedici behaves at the limit, where it is strong, where it hides its weaknesses, and where it still is not. He leaves with a reference no data sheet can give you. Ducati are not losing a seat filler. They are losing their own benchmark, and they are handing it to the one place built to use it against them. So go to the quote itself, because the wording gives it away. Davide Tardozzi, Ducati's team manager, did not soften it. He said, "We know that Pecco will be a kind of, in quotes, problem for us because we know that he's a very, very fast rider. Look at what he did." He put the word problem in air quotes, then explained why it does not belong in air quotes at all. Because Bagnaia is very, very fast. That is a boss handing you the diplomatic version and the real version in one breath. And here is the detail that turns this from a warm goodbye into something colder. Oh, and one thing about the bike Bagnaia is joining. It is not a rebuild project. It is not a gamble on potential. Look at the 2026 championship as it stands today. The top 2 riders on the planet are both on Aprilias. Jorge Martin leads on 193 points. Marco Bezzecchi is second on 186. First and second, both black bikes. And at Assen, the race that just ran, the winner was Iogura on a satellite Aprilia, a customer machine that is supposed to finish behind the factory bikes. In fact, 2 customer Trackhouse Aprilias took first and second, and the best the factory could manage, Jorge Martin crossed the line more than 3 seconds behind the winner. Now put the pieces together. Ducati are taking the most successful rider in their history and delivering him to the team that already owns first and second in the World Championship. A team whose junior squad just won a Grand Prix outright. And the man waiting on the other side of that Aprilia garage is Bezzecchi, who actually led this title race until he crashed out from 4th place at Assen, the podium still in reach, and handed the lead to Martin. That is the environment Bagnaia walks into. Not a struggling outfit that needs a saviour. The fastest package on the grid, about to have a 2-time champion bolted on top. That is why Tardozzi could not pretend, and it is why his next line is the coldest of all. He said, "We are waiting to see after the first winter test. They are not waiting to see if Bagnaia is still elite. They know he is. They are waiting to see how dangerous he looks the first time he rides the bike, already beating them. Ducati have effectively marked a date on the calendar when they will learn the size of the threat. Either way, they are counting down to it. "Here is the quiet part," said out loud. Everyone framed this move as Bagnaia stepping down. A fading champion, beaten inside his own garage last season, taking a big Aprilia check to go be a project leader somewhere softer. That was the story. That story is dead. Because the version that actually fits the evidence is the exact opposite. This was never Bagnaia running from the top. This was Ducati handing their single sharpest weapon to the one rival already beating them on pure pace. The knowledge of how the Desmosedici works. The feedback that shaped a title-winning motorcycle. 8 years inside Ducati, 6 of them at factory level, all of it now walking into the Aprilia box next to the man leading the championship. And this is the part that should genuinely worry Borgo Panigale. A rider does not only bring speed to a new project, he brings comparison. The moment Bagnaia is fast on that RSGP, every excuse Ducati has ever made for their own struggling riders evaporates. If the bike Bagnaia left is beatable, and the bike he joined is already winning, the story stops being about one transfer. It becomes about which factory actually builds the better motorcycle right now. And the honest answer, on today's points, is not the one wearing red. That is the belief flip. This was never Bagnaia leaving Ducati for less. This was Ducati arming the enemy, then admitting out loud that they know exactly what they just did. So what did Ducati really admit? Not that they will miss a friend. They admitted they are afraid of what he becomes the day he stops being theirs. When Tardozzi called Bagnaia a problem, he was not being sentimental. He was doing threat assessment in public. He looked at a rider who won 31 races for him, added him to a bike that already holds the top 2 places in the world, and reached the only conclusion the numbers allow. This is going to hurt. Make no mistake about what that means. Ducati are not dismissing Bagnaia. They are not spinning his exit as good riddance. They are preparing in the open to be beaten by their own former champion, on a bike they do not control, at a team that has spent 2026 proving it needs nobody's permission to win. The most dominant factory of the modern era just looked at its own future and flinched. And that is the real story. Not that Bagnaia left, that the team he built his legend with cannot bring itself to lie about how much it is going to cost them. When the winners start bracing for impact, the balance of power has already moved. Ducati just told you so themselves. So when Ducati calls its departing champion a problem, is that respect, or is it fear they can no longer hide? Tell us where you land in the comments below, and once you do that, make sure to click on the video appearing on your screen right now.